Once they called it slow. Now they're running scared. HFY sci-fi stories. In the year 2335, humanity had long been underestimated by the galactic powers. They were called slow, primitive even, and their homeworld, Earth, was dismissed as an irrelevant speck in the vastness of the universe. The Andromedans, the Vortari, the Elvak, all of them laughed when they learned of the humans' feeble spacefaring technologies. While the galaxy's more advanced races glided through space with grace, humanity's ships were clunky, inefficient things. Their weapons were outdated, their knowledge incomplete. It was laughable, they said. But no one ever bothered to actually study Earth's species up close. They didn't see how quickly humans adapted when faced with adversity. They didn't understand the fierce will to survive that burned deep within every human heart. They called humanity slow because they failed to grasp the power of perseverance, the subtle genius of innovation, and the unrelenting drive that would push the human race to overcome any obstacle, no matter how seemingly insurmountable. It wasn't long before they learned. It began with a single ship, the Vanguard. When it launched, it was just another humble craft, scraping the edges of the galactic frontier. Yet, within a year, its crews had unlocked new forms of energy that made previous fuel sources obsolete. Within 5, they developed faster-than-light drives that didn't require the vast resources of other races. But it wasn't the technology that scared them, it was the people. Humans were relentless, hungry for knowledge, and relentless in their pursuit of a better tomorrow. They shared information like wildfire, their minds wired for creativity, and their instincts for problem-solving unyielding. Other races couldn't understand how humans could progress so quickly, so effectively, in a galaxy so much older than their own. Then came the war. It wasn't a galactic war at first. It started with a series of skirmishes over resources between the Vortari and humans. Earth, after all, was rich in minerals that were highly coveted by galactic industries. The Vortari, long dominant in the sector, assumed they could simply crush these upstarts. They were wrong. By the time the Vortari had realized their mistake, humanity had constructed an entire fleet of ships that no one had seen before. They were faster, more maneuverable, and, most importantly, fought like nothing else in the galaxy. The humans' tactics weren't based on honor, tradition, or strategic depth. They fought with the raw, savage intensity of creatures who had fought for survival on a violent, unpredictable planet for millennia. The humans struck fast, with no warning. They didn't give their enemies time to react. Entire fleets were wiped out before the first shot was fired in return. And when the Vortari retaliated, they found that the humans had already learned, adapted, and improved on the Vortari's own tactics. It was a nightmare the galactic powers had never predicted. By the time the Andromedans joined the fray, they quickly realized that humanity wasn't the slow, weak species they once believed. The humans had a power the other races could never replicate, their ability to evolve rapidly, to turn every conflict, every loss, into an opportunity for improvement. The turning point came during the siege of Alara Prime, a high-profile galactic meeting place where several major races had gathered to negotiate peace. The Vortari and their allies had planned a devastating surprise attack, hoping to wipe out humanity once and for all. What they didn't expect was that the humans had infiltrated their ranks months before the attack. By the time the Vortari launched their assault, humanity was already there, waiting. In a bold move, Earth's forces shut down the communication network, rendering the invaders blind and helpless. The humans, with their superior tactics and relentless ingenuity, broke the siege in less than a day. The galaxy was left in stunned silence. Now, the tables had turned. It wasn't the humans who were afraid of the vast, incomprehensible galaxy. It was the Andromedans, the Vortari, and the Elvak who feared humanity's rapid ascent. They were no longer the slow species. They had evolved. They had adapted. Now, it was the rest of the galaxy that was running scared. As humanity's ships expanded into every corner of the galaxy, their enemies were left with one grim realization: they had underestimated Earth's greatest strength. The humans had been slow to start, yes, but in the end, it wasn't about speed. It was about heart. And the universe was starting to learn that humans would never stop running toward greatness. It was a new era. An era in which Earth had a place at the table. And no one would dare call them slow again. Once they called it slow. Now they're running scared, Part 2. The success at Alara Prime wasn't just a military victory. It was a declaration. It made every corner of the galaxy rethink their assumptions about humanity. The Vortari, the Andromedans, and even the Elvic, whose minds were once considered the pinnacle of intelligence, now found themselves scrambling to keep up with human innovation. In the years following the siege of Alara Prime, the humans took full advantage of their new status in the galaxy. Their once humble fleet of ships transformed into an unstoppable force, an armada of sleek, efficient vessels designed with every lesson learned from their previous battles. Their engineers, who once toiled in isolation, now collaborated with other alien races to create technologies that no one had thought possible. The human mind had a unique quality that no one could deny. It thrived under pressure, found solutions in the most difficult of circumstances. No race, no matter how advanced, had ever considered this before. And now, the galaxy would come to understand that humanity wasn't just surviving, it was thriving. But with this growth came new enemies. The Xeroth, an ancient race known for their ruthless expansionism, had been watching humanity from the shadows. The Xeroth were different. They didn't fear defeat, they thrived in chaos. And their empire had stretched across thousands of star systems, leaving nothing but ashes in their wake. They had watched the humans rise, and they saw an opportunity. Humanity's technological leap had been impressive, but they still lacked the resources to sustain such growth. The Xeroth believed they could crush them before they grew too powerful. Their first attack came without warning. A fleet of Xeroth warships, far larger than anything humanity had ever faced, arrived at the edge of human space. They gave no ultimatum, no demands. Their intention was clear: annihilation. The humans, however, had learned from their previous experiences. They knew that they couldn't simply rely on brute force. They needed to outsmart them. The Vanguard fleet, now a force of hundreds of ships, was ready, but they didn't rush into battle. Instead, they lured the Xeroth into a series of calculated skirmishes, each one more unpredictable than the last. The humans had studied the Xeroth extensively. They knew their tactics, their weaknesses, and their reliance on overwhelming numbers. One by one, the humans chipped away at the Xeroth forces, never engaging in open warfare but instead attacking their supply lines, their communication systems, and even their own leadership. It wasn't long before the Xeroth found themselves disoriented, their numbers thinning, their morale shattered. In a final, decisive move, humanity's forces launched a simultaneous strike on the Xeroth's flagship, the Infernal Tyrant. Using a combination of newly developed EMP weapons and stealth tactics, they disabled the ship's defenses, rendering it vulnerable. The battle was swift, and when the Infernal Tyrant fell, the Xeroth retreated, their forces in disarray. For the first time in centuries, the Xeroth had been humbled. They weren't the conquerors anymore. The humans had turned the tables yet again. But even in victory, the humans understood that they were only at the beginning of their journey. The galaxy had not forgotten their rise. Alliances were being formed against them, factions that feared the power humanity had demonstrated. Yet, there was no turning back now. The humans had shown what they were capable of, and they would not be cowed. At the heart of the growing human empire was Admiral Kai Reeve, the man who had masterminded humanity's military revolution. In a speech broadcast across the galaxy, he addressed the collective leaders of the galaxy's major races. "Once, you thought us slow," he said. "You called us weak, primitive, but we have learned, adapted, and we will continue to grow. We may have started as a fledgling species, but the universe is a different place now. Our place in it is earned, not given, and we will not stop. If we must fight, we will. If we must outthink our enemies, we will. And if we must work together with other races, we will. But make no mistake, we are here to stay." His words resonated across every communication channel, cutting through the alien languages of the galaxy, speaking a truth that every race could feel. Humanity had made its mark. Now, the real test began. The galaxy was divided. Some would rise to meet humanity's challenge, seeking alliances or even peace. Others would continue to scheme, to plot in the shadows, seeking to undermine the human expansion. But as the years went by, one thing became clear: humanity's place in the galaxy was no longer in question. The once slow, primitive species were now the wild card, And the galaxy's most powerful races? They weren't running scared. They were running to catch up. Once they called it slow. Now they're running scared. Part 3. The dust had barely settled from humanity's victory over the Zeroth when a new threat loomed on the horizon. For the first time in galactic history, a coalition of races, some long-standing allies, others bitter enemies, came together under the banner of a single, terrifying objective: the complete and utter eradication of humanity. The humans had come to realize something disturbing. As their technology improved and their influence spread, their enemies were not just resisting, they were changing, adapting. The galaxy's most dangerous factions had united, not out of fear, but out of desperation. They were beginning to see that humanity's rapid advancement wasn't just a threat to their borders, it was a threat to their very existence. The coalition, as they called themselves, was led by the Elvic. Their race had long prided itself on its intellectual superiority and its technological dominance. They had seen the rise of humanity not as a victory of the human spirit, but as an affront to everything they held sacred. The Elvic, despite their superior knowledge, had failed to account for one simple truth: humans were driven by an unyielding willpower, an energy that no race could predict, much less control. To the Elvic, the humans were the chaotic variable in the orderly equation of the galaxy, and they had no intention of allowing that chaos to spread unchecked. But the humans, as always, weren't content to sit back and be the target. They had learned too much, and in the wake of their previous triumphs, humanity had begun to develop something that no one, not even the combined strength of the galaxy's greatest powers, had seen before. They were developing theories of war, not just technology and tactics, but a philosophy of conflict, an entirely new approach to warfare. Humanity was on the verge of rewriting the very rules of engagement. At the center of this shift was General Celine Voss, a brilliant strategist and one of the most respected military leaders of the Vanguard fleet, known for her unconventional tactics and her ability to predict enemy movements with eerie accuracy. Voss had begun to implement a new strategy that blended technological innovation with psychology, turning warfare into a game of deception, misdirection, and calculated unpredictability. The first test of this new approach came when the coalition finally launched their full-scale invasion of human space. Their forces were vast, composed of the finest warriors and the most advanced warships in the galaxy. The coalition had assumed that humanity would deploy its forces in a predictable, conventional manner, defending their territories and trying to match firepower with firepower. They couldn't have been more wrong. Instead, General Voss initiated what would come to be known as the Phantom Assault. She divided humanity's fleets into dozens of smaller, seemingly uncoordinated groups that struck simultaneously across multiple fronts. Each fleet operated independently, and each was outfitted with newly developed cloaking technologies that made them nearly invisible to coalition sensors. The coalition, expecting to overwhelm humanity with sheer force, were immediately thrown into chaos. Their commanders, experienced and battle-hardened, found themselves unable to predict human movements. Every strategy they attempted was countered before it even had a chance to materialize. Humanity was everywhere and nowhere, a ghost in the void. Ships appeared where they shouldn't be and vanished without a trace. Every attack seemed to come from a different direction, every ambush hitting where they were weakest. The psychological toll on the coalition was staggering. Their ranks, once confident and united, began to fracture. The once proud Elvic, who prided themselves on their intellect, were now questioning their every decision. In the midst of the chaos, they realized a terrifying truth: the humans weren't just adapting, they were reading them, outthinking them at every turn. Their fear spread like wildfire, not of defeat, but of being caught in an unending cycle of unpredictability. As the weeks passed, the coalition's forces began to crumble. Voss didn't engage in large, decisive battles. Instead, she used hit-and-run tactics, targeting vital supply lines and command centers, all while never revealing the true strength of humanity's full military capacity. The humans didn't need to fight their enemies head-on, they had learned to fight the very foundation of their enemy's resolve. By the time the coalition managed to regroup, it was too late. The humans had already taken a strategic advantage. They had turned the coalition's own fear into their greatest weapon. In a final, pivotal move, General Voss led a covert operation to infiltrate the Elvec's homeworld, Illuria. The operation was swift, a blend of human ingenuity and alien technology. The Elvic, who once considered themselves masters of every battlefield, had their very capital invaded, their leaders captured, and their most powerful warships disabled, all without a single shot being fired in anger. When the Elvic surrendered, they did so not out of strength, but out of necessity. The galaxy's balance of power had shifted once again. And it was clear that humanity wasn't just on the rise, they had become the unstoppable force. The leaders of the coalition returned to their respective worlds, defeated not just in battle, but in their understanding of the human race. They were left with a single, overwhelming question: how do you fight something that is always one step ahead? How do you defeat an enemy who thrives on unpredictability? Who can adapt faster than any force you can throw at them? The answer was simple: you didn't. Humanity had shown them all that they were no longer the slow race. They were the architects of the future. And in a galaxy full of ancient powers and advanced civilizations, it was humanity that had become the new standard. Now, the universe wasn't running from them, they were running to catch up. Once they called it slow. Now they're running scared. Part 4. Humanity's victory over the coalition marked a pivotal turning point in galactic history. What had once been dismissed as a fleeting surge of unexpected power had now become the undeniable truth. The humans were not only a force to be reckoned with, they had become the apex predators of the galaxy. The Elvic, the Vortari, and the Andromedans, once the dominant players on the galactic stage, now found themselves constantly adapting, rethinking their strategies, and forging uneasy alliances just to maintain their place in the cosmic order. The unthinkable had happened: humanity, the species they had written off as weak and insignificant, had become the galaxy's new power broker. But with power came suspicion, and with suspicion came fear. Humanity's sudden rise to prominence had left many in the galaxy questioning their own survival. The coalition may have crumbled, but the seeds of resentment were planted deep in the hearts of those who had once thought themselves the undisputed rulers of the stars. The new era had begun, but it was far from peaceful. As humanity stretched its influence across the galaxy, they encountered more and more races who either saw them as a threat to be eliminated or a resource to be exploited. But this time, the humans weren't content to wait for their enemies to make the first move. Instead, they pushed forward with diplomacy, technology, and, when necessary, overwhelming force, to ensure their place as the dominant power. Admiral Kai Reeve, now the face of humanity's military might, had a simple motto that guided his every decision: we will not be passive. We will be proactive. Reeves' words echoed across the corridors of the Vanguard, humanity's flagship, as he addressed his officers. The war with the coalition may have ended, but new threats were rising on the horizon. The most immediate danger was the SHYRN, a race of ruthless bioengineered conquerors who had long been rumored to be advancing on human territories. They had long been content to wait and watch from the shadows, but now their gaze had fixed squarely on humanity. And their goals were anything but peaceful. The SHYRN's warships, vast and terrifying, were unlike anything humanity had faced before. Their ships seemed to be grown rather than built, with living armor that healed itself and weapons capable of draining energy from entire planets. The SHYRN were a race that had embraced genetic modification to its extreme, creating creatures that were both intelligent and deadly, blending biology and technology in ways humanity had never considered. The humans' first encounter with the SHYRN came on the outer rim of human space, at a contested colony known as Vigilance. The colony was barely an outpost, a settlement of miners and researchers, but to the SHYRN, it represented an opportunity to test humanity's resolve. When the SHYRN fleet appeared without warning, humanity's response was swift and brutal. General Celine Voss, still at the forefront of humanity's military innovations, had already predicted such an encounter. Her forces had been preparing for months, outfitting the Vanguard fleet with weapons specifically designed to counter the SHYRN's unique biological tech. The battle for vigilance was unlike any other humanity had fought before. The SHYRN ships were nearly indestructible, their organic armor regenerating faster than human weapons could inflict damage. The humans quickly learned that brute force alone wouldn't win this fight. Instead, they had to target the SHYRN's core, an intricate network of bioorganic systems that governed the entire fleet. 4 days, The two forces clashed in the void, the humans pushing back as they learned the weaknesses of the SHYRN technology. Voss, with her unparalleled strategic mind, orchestrated the battle like a grand chess game, using decoys, feints, and misdirection to exploit the SHYRN's overconfidence. It took everything humanity had, but in the end, they managed to exploit a vulnerability in the SHYRN's organic armor, allowing a concentrated strike to destroy their flagship and cripple the rest of their fleet. The SHYRN retreated, but the damage had been done. Humanity's victory was not just a military one, it was a symbol of their ability to adapt, to grow, and to overcome any challenge. But the SHYRN, like the others before them, would not forget this defeat. In the wake of their victory, humanity didn't rest on its laurels. They knew that the SHYRN would return, and that they weren't the only ones watching. More and more races were beginning to realize that humanity wasn't just a threat, they were an existential one. And the galaxy's old powers, the ones who had once ruled unchallenged, were beginning to gather their forces, preparing for the inevitable war that would decide the future of the galaxy. Admiral Reeve and General Voss knew the storm was coming. Humanity had already changed the rules of war, but the galaxy was about to see just how far humanity would go to defend its place at the top. No longer would they be the slow, primitive race. Humanity had proven time and again that it was more than that. Now, they were the architects of their own destiny. And no one, not the SHYRN, not the Elvic, nor any of the other galactic powers, would stop them from shaping the galaxy in their image. For better or worse, humanity was here to stay, and the universe would have to deal with it. Once they called it slow, now they're running scared. Part 5. The SHYRN's retreat had been more than a tactical retreat, it had been a warning. The galaxy's old powers were now watching humanity with wary eyes, and they were starting to understand something that had eluded them for centuries. Humanity was not just rising, they were evolving, reshaping the very fabric of what it meant to be a galactic power. And yet, the threat that now loomed over humanity was no longer just from external forces. The galaxy was beginning to fracture, and tensions between once allied races were beginning to stir. In the wake of the SHYRN conflict, humanity's success had attracted the attention of the Etherian Council, a loose alliance of several of the galaxy's most powerful species. The Council, formed to maintain balance and peace, had previously been unchallenged in their role as the keepers of galactic order. They had watched humanity's rise with growing unease, their members now debating whether the human race posed a threat to the delicate balance they had worked so hard to maintain. Admiral Kai Reeve received the first signs of the Council's discontent when he was summoned to a secret summit. The invitation was clear, the time for diplomacy was over. Humanity's rapid ascension had reached a tipping point, and it was no longer a matter of negotiation, it was a matter of survival. The summit was held on the neutral planet of Arcadia, a world that served as the diplomatic heart of the galaxy. The meeting room was filled with representatives from the galaxy's most influential factions, the Elvuk, the Andromedans, the Vortari, and the Etherians' representative species, the Xiphos. All sat in silence as Reeve entered, his presence commanding and unapologetic. The humans were no longer seen as guests, they were now an unavoidable force in galactic politics. The leader of the Etherian Council, the Xiphos Chancellor, an ancient and calculating being, wasted no time. His voice was cold, though not without respect. "Admiral Reeve, we have watched you," the Chancellor began, his voice echoing in the vast chamber. "Watched as you tore through the coalition, watched as you defeated the SHYRN, and now, we see a future where humanity is no longer just part of the galaxy's tapestry. You have the potential to dominate it." The room was still, every delegate's eyes fixed on Reeve, waiting for his response. There was no friendly banter in this meeting, only the raw acknowledgement of power. Reeve stood, his demeanor unwavering. "We've already dominated, Chancellor. We've built alliances, won wars, and shown that we can adapt to any challenge. But we didn't do it for power, we did it for survival. Because for centuries, we've been told we were weak, told that we'd never make it. And we've proven you wrong, again and again." The room shifted slightly, as if the weight of his words were sinking in, but the Chancellor wasn't finished. "Your survival, Admiral, is exactly why we're here," he continued. The galaxy has existed under the guidance of the Etherian Council for millennia. Our laws, our peace, have kept chaos at bay. But your rapid growth, your reckless ambition, could destabilize everything we've worked for. And make no mistake, humanity's trajectory threatens the order we've established. Reeve met the Chancellor's gaze, unwavering. We never asked for your peace. We never asked for your order. We earned our place in the stars, and we will fight to keep it. Humanity has been at the mercy of others for far too long. We're done being passive. The other delegates shifted uneasily. The truth of humanity's words, though harsh, struck at the heart of the issue. The old galactic powers had no answers for the question they feared the most. Could they control humanity? Or was humanity beyond control? The room fell silent again, but this time, it was not a silence of confrontation. It was the silence of realization. The universe was changing, and there was nothing they could do to stop it. Before the summit could continue, a sharp signal interrupted their proceedings. An emergency transmission from Vigilance. It was a warning. A new faction had entered the fray. The transmission was garbled at first, but then the voice came through, desperate and frantic. Admiral Reeve, this is Commander Coral of Vigilance. We have an unidentified fleet on approach. It's not HFY. It's something else, something worse. The signal crackled. They're headed straight for us. And they're not stopping. The room erupted into chaos. The galaxy's most powerful races were on edge as the gravity of the situation began to dawn on them. A new enemy, unlike any they had encountered before, was on their doorstep. Admiral Reeve turned to the Etherian Council, his expression grim. It seems the galaxy isn't done testing us. Whatever this new threat is, humanity is ready for it. The Xiphos Chancellor's eyes narrowed, and for the first time since the meeting had begun, he looked uncertain. We may be forced to reconsider our stance on humanity. Admiral, you may not be as much of a threat as we thought, but if your survival requires the destruction of this new threat, then we will fight alongside you. Reeve's gaze swept the room, meeting each delegate's eyes. He didn't wait for their permission. He knew what needed to be done. Humanity would stand alone if necessary, but the galaxy had one undeniable truth now. If they wanted to survive, they would have to stand with humanity. The warning from Vigilance was just the beginning. The new enemy was unlike anything the galaxy had seen, and humanity's role in this new galactic age was about to become far more complicated. But the humans were no longer the underdogs. And the galaxy was about to find out that, once again, they had underestimated humanity. Admiral Reeve's words echoed in the chamber, his voice carrying a certainty that was both chilling and inspiring. Let them come, he said. Humanity will stand, and we'll make sure the galaxy knows one thing for certain. We are the ones who decide the future now, not anyone else. And with that, the stage was set for a new chapter in the galaxy's story, one where humanity would either rise to meet a new challenge, or become the galaxy's final hope against a new and terrifying enemy. Once they called it slow, now they're running scared. Part 6. The transmission from Vigilance had been just the beginning. Within hours, the unknown fleet arrived in human space, sending shockwaves through the entire galaxy. The strange ships were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Long, dark, angular vessels that seemed to shimmer in and out of reality, like ripples on the surface of an ocean disturbed by a storm. Their weapons were unlike anything humanity, or any other race, had encountered, capable of draining the energy from entire ships in the blink of an eye. It was as if the ships themselves were made of an unearthly material that defied conventional physics. The new enemy, as the fragmented reports revealed, had no name, no race, no face, only a single, chilling characteristic: they had no mercy. Humanity had faced its fair share of enemies, be they the SHYRN, the Zeroth, or the Etherian Council, but this was different. The mysterious invaders didn't come with demands or ultimatums. They didn't even seem to have a clear strategy. Instead, they were methodical, consuming everything in their path, leaving behind nothing but empty, lifeless systems. Every human colony, every outpost, was wiped off the map before they even had time to react. Admiral Kai Reeve and General Celine Voss knew that this new enemy wasn't just an external threat, it was the perfect test of humanity's new place in the galaxy. This time, they wouldn't be fighting to prove their worth. This time, They would fight to survive, and humanity's survival instinct was sharper than ever before. Humanity's fleets, mobilized across the galaxy, formed a united front, despite the political rifts that had long divided them. The vanguard, Titan's wrath, the resolve, all the fleets were now under Reeves' command. But it wasn't just the military that was mobilizing. Humanity's best scientists and engineers were working overtime, pooling all their knowledge, resources, and ingenuity to find a way to combat this new alien terror. For weeks, the humans attempted to learn everything they could about the mysterious invaders. They studied their attacks, tried to understand their technology, and analyzed the wreckage of the few battleships they managed to salvage. But it became clear, the invaders weren't interested in communication, negotiation, or conquest in the traditional sense. They didn't even seem interested in gaining anything from their destruction. They simply eradicated. The first large-scale confrontation came at the Luna Gate, the massive space station that connected Earth to the rest of humanity's colonies. It was humanity's most vulnerable choke point, and it was here that the mysterious fleet launched their first large-scale assault. Their ships appeared without warning, bypassing the human defenses with an eerie ease, like they could see right through the ship's shields, their systems failing as though they had been drained by a silent, invisible hand. Reeve had already prepared for this kind of threat, but even his foresight couldn't account for the sheer power of their weapons. His fleets engaged immediately, but it was clear they were fighting something they couldn't fully understand. Human weapons bounced off their ships like raindrops against armor, and even the experimental EMPs they had developed to disrupt enemy tech were utterly ineffective. The enemy seemed to feel the attacks, but it wasn't the kind of feedback a typical ship would experience. It was as though the ships had no need for energy the way human ships did. They didn't rely on power grids or reactors, they simply existed, and whatever energy they needed came from the very fabric of space itself. For a moment, humanity seemed to be on the verge of defeat. The Luna Gate, humanity's strongest defensive position, was torn apart in a matter of hours. Reeve, watching the destruction unfold, understood that this wasn't just another battle to win. This was the battle for the future of humanity. Then, something unexpected happened. General Celine Voss, ever the strategist, had been working with humanity's brightest minds on a new kind of weapon, a device that tapped into the very essence of the galaxy's energy fields. They had theorized about this for years, but now, under the immense pressure of their dire situation, the final piece of the puzzle clicked into place. They weren't going to fight these invaders with traditional weapons, they would fight them with understanding. Working with humanity's finest engineers, Voss oversaw the deployment of the first phase disruptor, a device capable of interfering with the fabric of spacetime itself. The weapon was experimental and proven, but it was humanity's only hope. When the invaders returned to Earth's orbit, humanity launched its counteroffensive. Reeve gave the order, and the Vanguard fleet surged into the fray. With a single blast from the phase disruptor, humanity's ships fired a focused beam into the heart of the invader fleet, disrupting the space around them. It wasn't just an attack on their ships, it was an attack on the very dimension that sustained them. The result was immediate. The invader fleet began to stagger, their ships flickering, becoming unstable. The eerie shimmer that had once given them such an advantage began to fade. For the first time since humanity's rise to galactic prominence, the mysterious invaders were vulnerable. The phase disruptor didn't destroy the enemy ships, it didn't need to. It simply forced them to confront the one thing that all powerful beings had to face eventually, their own limitations. The remaining invader ships began to implode, their technology unable to keep up with the sudden destabilization. In the wake of the chaos, humanity's fleet pressed the attack, finishing off the remaining invaders with precision strikes. Within hours, the threat that had loomed over them for weeks was extinguished. But the victory didn't come without cost. The humans had lost several ships and a great many lives in the battle. But the message had been sent, humanity had survived, adapted, and risen once again. The invaders were gone. For now. Admiral Reeve and General Voss stood on the bridge of the Vanguard, looking out at the debris field where the invader fleet had once been. Reeve's expression was somber. "We've won," Voss said, her voice steady, but her gaze troubled. "But they'll come back. Something like this, it never stops." Reeve nodded slowly, his fingers tapping against the console. "They will come back," he said quietly, and next time, they'll bring more. But humanity was no longer the species that had once been underestimated. The galaxy had learned that lesson the hard way. The unknown enemy had just learned it too. And now, humanity had one final message for the stars. They were no longer just surviving. They were shaping the future of the galaxy. And no one, no force, no empire, could stop them. And as the stars burned brighter in the night sky, the universe could only wonder, how much further would humanity go before they became the undisputed rulers of all?